When you think of France, what comes to mind? Wine? Fashion? Maybe the Eiffel Tower? Well, here's something you probably didn't think of. France is now home to some of the world's biggest tech companies across AI, fintech, and digital health. Fintech accounts for 20% of all startups. AI and machine learning, 15%. Health tech, another 12%. And these aren't just small local companies, they're playing on a global scale. Take BlaBlaCar, for example, a ride-sharing giant with over 100 million users worldwide and a 1.6 billion euro valuation. Or Doctolib, which is completely transforming digital healthcare, serving 40 million patients across Europe. And if you're into crypto, you've probably heard of Ledger, the company behind the world's most popular hardware crypto wallets, producing 90% of them right here in France. And the real kicker? In 2015, France had only 3 unicorns, startups valued at over $1 billion. Today, it has 34 plus and counting. With record-breaking investments, government-backed initiatives, and a thriving startup scene, France has become Europe's second-largest tech hub, trailing only the UK. In fact, in 2017, French startups raised just 2.6 billion euros. Fast forward to 2023, and that number has skyrocketed to over 13 billion euros. So, how did France go from slow-moving bureaucracy to a European tech superpower? Let's break it down. For years, France was seen as a country that celebrated tradition more than innovation, a land of fine wine, haute couture, and bureaucracy. But beneath the surface, something extraordinary has been happening. This sudden tech explosion, it wasn't an accident. And in just a decade, France has gone from an underdog to an innovation powerhouse. So let's recall how it started. Well, in 2013, France took a bold first step with the launch of the French Tech Mission, a government-backed initiative to support startups, attract investors, and build a strong innovation ecosystem. At the time, French tech was still small and mostly local, but that started to change. In 2014, France made a historic debut at the Consumer Electronics Show, CES, in Las Vegas. Fleur Pellerin, France's then Minister for Innovation, brought 90 French startups, the largest French delegation ever. That moment put France on the global tech map. But the real game changer came in 2017, when Emmanuel Macron was elected president. When Macron took office in 2017, he made one thing clear: France would become a startup nation. And he wasn't just talking. He backed up his vision with bold, pro-tech policies that changed the game. A 5 billion euro fund dedicated to helping late-stage startups scale globally. Corporate tax cuts, reducing rates from 33% in 2017 to 25% in 2022, making France a more attractive place to do business. And the French Tech Visa, which fast-tracks international entrepreneurs and has already approved 10,000 plus applications since its launch. These reforms and funding laid the foundation for one of the fastest-growing tech ecosystems in the world. But hey, no coverage of France's startup evolution would be complete without a nod to the public bank Bpifrance, created at the end of 2012. The organization, which is considered a key pillar of pro-startup government action, was given the mission to fund and develop French businesses with a focus on innovation. As a matter of fact, for the past 10 years, Bpifrance has been pumping money into thousands of French startups. Throughout 2023, the bank made 677 million euros of equity investments, about 10% of total VC funding for French startups that year. But the monster share of capital deployed comes from loans and subsidies, which in 2023 amounted to nearly 4 billion euros. Although 2024 was a slow year for French tech. For the first time since 2021, French startups were overtaken by their German neighbors. Sifted data shows that startups in Germany raised over 9.5 billion euros last year in both debt and equity deals, while VC investments in France amounted to 9 billion euros. But French tech still saw some headline-grabbing fundraisers last year, particularly in AI, from buzzy AI scale-up Mistral's 600 million euro Series B to a record $220 million seed round raised by H Company, which saw the departure of 3 out of 5 co-founders just 3 months later. In fact, the country was the host for AI Action Summit in February 2025. And as an outcome for this event, France is expected to attract more international investors and talent, partially as a result of geopolitical and policy changes in some of the more traditional ecosystems. And let's not forget about France's €109 billion investment plan for cutting-edge tech sectors like AI, cybersecurity, and quantum computing. Now, alongside government policy and startup networks, a cultural change is underway in France, one which is shifting talent towards entrepreneurship. We got some serious boss moves from the tech entrepreneurs. Xavier Niel, who founded Iliad and the renowned coding school 42, is a visionary in innovation and education, and he has been backing many of the leading French startups. One startup that's an absolute beast mode success story? Criteo. This ad tech giant pioneered AI-powered digital advertising and now has a global footprint with over 2,700 employees in 30 countries. According to a BCG report, the government's funding accounted for nearly 25% of the €5.4 billion raised by French AI startups in 2022 alone. Companies like Shift Technology, AI for fraud detection, and Outsight 3D sensor solutions have used this support to become actual unicorns. And it's not just consumer tech. France is also dominating climate tech. It's now Europe's #1 destination for green tech investments. Unlike many global tech hubs, France is actively working to close the diversity gap. Women-led startups receive 12% of VC funding, higher than the global average of 8%. 20% of startup founders in France are immigrants, proving how international talent is driving innovation. Initiatives like Sista are pushing for gender parity in funding, making France one of the most inclusive startup ecosystems. However, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. With all this tech advancement, cybersecurity and data privacy are going to be major concerns. It may be Europe's first or second largest tech hub, but on a global scale, France still ranks 27th in the World Digital Competitiveness Index 2023. And despite its unicorn boom, only 12% of French startups successfully expand to the US, a huge disadvantage compared to Silicon Valley-backed companies. Then there's the bureaucratic red tape. Even though Macron's government introduced pro-business reforms, France still has one of the slowest processes for registering a company, taking 3 times longer than in the UK. And if that wasn't enough, cybersecurity and data privacy concerns are growing, while a shortage of skilled tech workers is making it harder for French companies to compete globally. Plus, there's already a shortage of skilled tech workers, and demand is only going to keep rising. And France needs to stay on top of these issues if they want to keep the momentum going. So, here's the big question. Can France maintain its momentum and become the world's next tech superpower? Or will it struggle to compete with Silicon Valley, China, and its European rivals? What do you think? Let's talk about it in the comments.